sure you've considered at some point in time rooftop solar. Today we'll explore why that's one of the best opportunities you have for your wallet in the world. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk specifically on rooftop solar. You may have heard of other things like community solar, green electricity from your provider, balcony solar. We're not going to talk about those today. So we're going to focus in on if you own a house or we're looking to buy a house and you have a roof that's exposed to the sun, this is one of the most effective reduction opportunities for your carbon footprint. And it's got a very, very nice financial return. Good for the wallet, good for the world. There's many reasons to pontificate or to wait. And some of those reasons are, well, the homeowners association doesn't allow it. I got a tree in the way of the sun. My roof is old. I'm not sure how long I'm going to own the house. And somebody in my household doesn't like the way it looks. All legitimate reasons. What we're going to do is show you a tool, show you the financial and environmental benefits, and then hopefully convince you it's worthwhile to overcome some or all of those obstacles. Every house is unique, and most local installers will give you a very detailed design and financial analysis of putting on solar. They're less capable of showing you the environmental impact, but you know they'll get in once you're interested in doing it, and you'll get a lot of information. This tool is a little bit more high spot. You know, we don't have the design of your house. We don't have the exact location. So it's more in general to help you see the ballpark figures around what's good for your wallet and what's good for the world. Okay, so here's the solar calculator. So you can put your name and your email in. You got to put your usage, how many kilowatts per year. And you should have this from your carbon footprint. And I use kind of a general number here on the average of 10,000 kilowatts per year. You got to pick your solar zone. Now there's a map that shows you across the United States where your house is, and it gives you how much solar intensity there is in your area. I'm going to pick zone 5. That's what I'm in, mid-Atlantic area. Then you got to choose your roof exposure. If you're exposed directly to the south, that's great. East-west, still fine. You get the morning and the afternoon, but it's a little less intense. Here, I'm going to choose something in between. So you're not quite south, not quite east-west. And then for electric rate, I'm going to use the average across the United States. It's $17.50 per kilowatt hour. You need to either go to your utility, go on the website. They'll show you what the history is of the residential price for electricity, or go to your last several bills. They can be pretty confusing. You got 10 different line items on them, but take the total dollars they charge for electricity, divide it by the kilowatt hours per month, and you'll get the kilowatt dollars per kilowatt hour. Every different state has different incentives, both one time when you install it, and then ongoing. Pennsylvania, the utility PICO gives a $500 rebate up front, and then depending on how much electricity you generate, you can have close to $500 a year in a rebate and credits that you can sell. Here, as we talked about with the carbon footprint, I put natural gas as the electric source. You can choose your own sub-region or coal. We have interest rate here, because for the financial analysis, and I just put U.S. Treasury bonds, 3.5% after tax. I put that at the discount rate. Then you can put an electricity inflation. All your solar providers will put that in there because nationwide it's been going up 5% per year. And that affects the calculation quite a bit. Here, I'll knock that down to 3%. Normally, the panels are guaranteed for 25 years. So we do that calculation, take a look, saying, okay, way down here it says 20 panels going to cost about $16,000 up front. It's going to reduce your carbon footprint by 9,600 pounds. It'll pay back in 6 years. So after 6 years, you'll pay that $16,000 back. And after that, it's all gravy. The financial internal rate of return, a sophisticated kind of thing, is 18%. You can see your carbon dioxide reduction per investment is 0.6. Pretty good. And then you can see all the cash flow, regular and discounted if you're, a financial person. Take a look at that. Just for yucks, and 18% is very good. The stock market averages at 10%, so you're almost twice that. This is Pennsylvania. If you're in the state of Delaware, they actually give you up to $6,000 rebate. Here, I'll put $5,000 in. You say, boom, 25%. Then say, I'm not reducing natural gas. I think coal is going in, is what I'm targeting. And I'm going to assume mine is generated from coal. You'll see the annual CO2 savings jumps way up from 9,600 to 2,300, pounds. So you can play with this. I'll look at what we'll call a low return case. We'll go down to Louisiana. Has more sun. It's zone 6. We'll say it's east-west, so it's the least exposed. And 12, they're the cheapest electricity rate, and they give no incentive one time, no incentive annually. Let's go back to natural gas and say, no. And even though they've been going up 5% per year, they're going to have that under control and go 2. So we recalculate that. It says 4% return. Again, 16-year payback. So you do get your money back. It's a much lower return, but this is kind of the worst case, scenario. You still get, better than a U.S. Treasury bond. Now let's go on the other side. Let's go to Massachusetts. They're less intense. At zone 4, let's say they're a southern exposure. 30 cents per kilowatt hour is what you pay. They got a $1,000 local incentive or one-time incentive, and then about a $300 annual incentive. And let's say, it has been inflating more than 5, but let's put the nationwide average as 5, recalculate 28%. Pays back in 4 years. Obviously, you're going to be somewhere in between these two. The average is still better than the stock market gives you. So it's a great place to put your money. Of course, this assumes 2 things, this calculator. One is that you're buying them. We'll talk about leasing in a second. The second thing, it assumes that you have what's called net metering. So you don't need batteries. When you generate more than you need, it goes back to the grid, and you get that same price for what you put in than what you take out. So net, it's basically zero you pay. Now, there are 3 states, Alabama, South Dakota, and Tennessee, that don't have net metering. And then there's a few states like California and Arizona that have net metering, but because they've got so much solar, there's time of day differences and a lot of different complexities. And so this calculator really doesn't handle that. You need to go to your local installer or some other local folks that'll help you think through solar. It's a very different situation there. So where do you go from here? I would, take this information if it's interesting and has you energized to go ahead. Contact a couple of installers. There's 2 different websites we'll address here. One is Solar Neighbors United. That's a nonprofit that will help you understand in your location what other options are there and how to best approach solar. There's also a link to Energy Sage, and this is a for-profit entity that is going to hook you up with installers. Just be careful there, because you're going to put your bill in and you're going to get a lot of people giving you a lot of quotes. Research them, choose ones that are locally reputable, and have them come out. You'll get a quote. It's probably not all that definitive, and they won't guarantee it until they come out and look at your house and make sure they understand where the wiring's going to go and the panel design is correct. But go ahead and engage them, and you'll get, if your prices for the number of panels is much higher, get a few other quotes. What I did was I put in here kind of the average that I've been seeing in the Mid-Atlantic region, where they give you, a $3,000 to $4,000 just to start the project, and then $750 approximately for each panel. So the more panels you put in, the cheaper it is. And that's one other thing you ought to consider is over-designing. Now, a lot of utilities will only allow you to put in the number of panels that are going to generate what you consume in the last year or so. However, if you go to them saying, hey, I'm looking to put an EV in or a heat pump and my electricity generation is going to go up, a lot of them will allow you to over-design it. Once you get this information and this incentive, again, really good for the world, really good for your wallet, you may still have some of those objections. And hopefully you now have the incentive to overcome them. The HOA, my HOA didn't allow it. A few people got on the board, a few people petitioned it. They changed the homeowners association rule that we can have solar now. Trees, you can take them down. People say, well, doesn't that, you don't want to really remove trees. Well, if you remove the tree, you sell it to somebody who burns the firewood to heat their house, that replaces fossil fuel. And you can plant more low-lying trees and bushes, and that will consume probably more carbon dioxide than that very mature tree did. Well, my roof is old. Yeah. You don't want to put it on a 15, 20-year-old roof because the roof will have to be replaced. You got to remove the shingles, put them back on. This gives you a couple of opportunities. One is you can replace the roof with a solar shingles, and that's cheaper than putting the roof plus solar panels on top of that. You can explore that option. The other thing to do, and we'll show you a couple of pictures here, is when you do replace your roof in anticipation of putting solar panels up, have your solar installer design your what you call vent pipes. Those are those pipes that stick out of the roof. They're for your to vent your plumbing system, and position them so they're not in the wrong place. It's an easy thing to do once you're replacing the roof. And we show you two pictures here. My house, where the vent pipes are well designed, and so it's much more effective and it's aesthetically pleasing, versus the second one where they came in and kind of patched it together, so to speak. So that a new roof gives you the opportunity to put those that more design freedom in there. Finally, I'm not sure how long I'm going to own the house. It says 6-7 year payback. I may not be here that long. Do I really want to put it in place? Surveys say that 60 to 70% of the people will pay a premium for a house that already has solar. Realtors are hot and cold on this because they want everybody to bid on a house. They want their biggest audience and get the highest price, but people will pay a premium. The one obstacle that is talked about is if you lease them or buy them. If you lease them, then there is some issues there. The new owner has to qualify for the lease, and that makes it more complicated for the realtor, and they'd rather have you own it. So when you look at leasing, you may not have the money up front, the $16,000 or whatever. So you start the lease. Right now, with interest rates are high, the cost may be higher than your electric bill and what the designer will or what the installer will say, but with electricity inflation, in a couple of years, you'll be saving money. Take a look at it, but also get the option to buy it out. So you can lease it for a while and then buy it. So when you go to sell your house, you'll sell it at a premium. They say 3 to 4%. Do the math. That's very attractive. The final reason you want to really consider solar panels for your house is it gives you a better financial and environmental pathway to zero. for your driving and your entire household consumption. So by electrifying your heat with a heat pump and electrifying your vehicle by going to a EV, you add electricity. But with over-designing your solar panel system, you can basically generate all of that. And obviously that helps the environment, but it also helps it financially. Because remember, adding those few extra panels, they're cheaper than the initial ones. And so you add that. Sometimes your heat pump economically may be a little on the edge, and your electric vehicle, when you do those calculations based on the electricity price that you pay today, may not be as attractive. But if you put those solar panels in, it drops your electricity price. Well, it basically goes to zero, but you've got to overcome that investment you put in. And there, it's normally less than 10 cents a kilowatt hour when you basically pay yourself back for that investment, and makes the heat pump and the electric vehicle even more advantageous from your wallet. Remember back to the episode on wallet versus world. I showed you a consulting tool where you kind of put these different opportunities in perspective with one another. And what I did here was show you that same chart, but I took the solar bubble and I broke it down into those three examples we just went through. The one where I live, southeast Pennsylvania, one in Louisiana, L.A., and one in Massachusetts. So you can see where those three examples, and you're going to fit somewhere in the middle of that where they come out. And you can see, as we discussed, the one in Louisiana, it's better than a U.S. Treasury bond from a financial standpoint, but it's much less than the other two, which were way out there, 25 and 28%. And from an environmental standpoint, they're a little under the 0.75 line. And the reason being is, it's a large investment. It gets a large carbon dioxide reduction, but it's a big investment. A lot of the other investments you're looking at, they're incremental, like with an EV. You're not buying the EV, you're comparing the EV versus a gas. So it's the incremental investment. And same with, for instance, a heat pump. You're not just buying that heat pump outright, you're looking at that heat pump versus some other alternative. So it's the incremental investment. So at the end of the day, it's still very good for the environment, the world, and extremely good, especially in Pennsylvania and Massachusetts, for your wallet. I hope this was helpful. Play with the tool, see what you think. And if you've got questions, you're welcome to set up a Zoom call, and we'll help you walk through some of the analysis and different questions you might have. Thanks again for your time. Thank you for listening to Fade Your Footprint, a show about home decarbonization. Make sure you visit my website, fadeyourfootprint.org, and check out my free tools or book a Zoom session with me to take steps toward reducing your personal carbon emissions.